on this particular day, which I just remember very succinctly, is that he was not at his best. And it had been a while with him hitting balls, and Claude as his coach at the time, kind of going back in some different thoughts. And then Claude just brought him in. And I'm not sure how many pressure traces we had done before, but we had this happening. And it's, what'd you call this particular trace?
Well, typically when he played his best, because you showed me some of the best traces when he is winning major championships, he was more of a linear trace, which was the center of pressure going back and through. And this one was a little bit of a backup trace through impact.
Can you switch back to the first trace from January? That one?
Yeah, just as a comparison.
Just so they can see a comparison. Perfect.
Slide that out there, Chip. Chip, can we slide the center of pressure charts out?
Oh, these are because these were shot.
Okay. Can you just compare there and then bring it in?
There we go.
So just if you're laying the body track, you can kind of see basically straight lines right there. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. You can basically see some straight lines here. This is when Brooks is at his best. Right. So he goes back to that right arch, goes through to his left arch. Right. And if you can switch back to this particular day in July last year, and Jake can help us with this.
Sure.
Come on. Just go back to July.
Okay.
Yeah. The one we had up earlier. There you go. Trace is different, right? The lines are different. So after Claude had Brooks hitting balls for a while, we just couldn't figure out per se what the root cause was. And Claude smartly got him on the body track, and we started seeing a different pattern. And this is something you really couldn't see with your naked eye.
See, this is what I find so interesting. You've got a grown man, but you had him since he was a college player. You know his game, you know his ball flight, you know his movements. You're seeing it on video, and almost
he was not the Brooks I know, right?
Yeah, and yet it wasn't the ball flight, and yet the video to both of you looked more similar than it did different.
Yep.
Right? Until you got it on the body track, and then it was absolutely stark differences on there. So if you want to go ahead and play it.
Right. Just explain the motion here.
Sure. So he's loading similarly. So if we go into his backswing, it's this one is more similar. And again, for all the V1 pressure mat owners, just so you know, his heels are at the top and his toes are at the bottom. So he's loading into, again, a little bit into the toe, breaking there. Then it's going to move towards the heel with the center of pressure in transition there, loading about 80 back, which is a typical number that we see. So go ahead and put him through transition. There you go. So he goes forward into the lead side. And again, this is something that I will say is that all elite level players, Brooks is no different, get pressure into the lead side sooner rather than later. All poorer players, unfortunately, are a little slow with their center of pressure. So right there, he's at about 68% forward, a tiny bit in the toe. And then we're going to see the center of pressure back up through impact, back towards the trail side. And you referred to this as a reverse pivot. And the most important thing is, so there you see at about impact, 60% on the trail side. So you're seeing that you measured him, and I've always called swing banking. You measured him when he's playing his best, and you measured him when he's saying, what's going on? The ball's going everywhere. And all you did was compare the data against what he does when he plays his best against when he was currently struggling, and noted the difference. And this was the biggest difference here.
Right. And so we kind of knew he had a knee issue. We didn't know probably the severity of the knee issue, right? And
well, it's kind of interesting. He didn't tell that. He didn't divulge that information when he came in first, did he?
It was hurting. Basically, it was hurting. And with a great professional athlete like Brooks, this is what you typically find. You find guys that will plow through pain and not care and get the job done. In this case, it wasn't quite the Brooks that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And so what Claude did basically is we finally grilled him. We got a real good indication that this is actually a pretty big deal, right? This is preventing him from being the Brooks that we know in 2019, 2018, who's winning majors, right? To at a 4 out of 6 or whatever it was, right? And so
before the world knew about Brooks's injury to his knee, you measured it with the V1 pressure mat and got it out of him.
I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't quote me on the sequence of events, but that's about right.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
I have a question about the strikes.
Sure.
Real quick. Which foot is his right foot and his left foot?
left foot, right foot.
But on the trace.
Yeah.
Left foot, right foot.
Okay, and I'm asking that question. I know the answer to that question.
Right.
But
Good,
I'm
good,
asking
good.
that question for the audience because there's 2 different ways to look at this. And when you guys say knee and toe, I want to make sure we're talking about the same feet based on
Right.
that match.
So what they do here at the academy, I think this is fine. I think this is great because a lot of the times that they video the body track using the D1 Professional is that they flip the video so that way the center of pressure moves in the direction that the player is swinging as they view it. And that's an excellent way of doing it.
Yeah. I think
And you have that option.
just from that player's perspective, they see the ball going out of their studio and they see their pressure trace kind of following that
Right.
ball flight. And that makes a little more sense to me. I think the player as well, just from this perspective. Maybe from a perspective where the TV is on the ground, might be a little different. But I think forward facing, it's a little bit easier for them to understand. But back to Brooks, I mean, Claude basically said, we got to open up that left side. And Claude's also a TPI professional as well. He understands how the body produces the swing style that's right for Brooks. And, Brooks probably has a little history of a neck issue, a little bit of a shoulder issue, and a little bit of a hip issue. He's always been a little bit tight in those areas. Still pretty efficient, right? And we just had to open up his left hip a little bit. And I think, he still played in pain for that rest of the season. And maybe if someone could bring up the results from kind of August on last year, wasn't that bad, right? Wasn't that bad. He is Brooks, and that's the type of player he is, right? But one little difference like that with body track, you can really, from a coaching perspective, you can really identify something that the player may not realize is making a difference in their game.
I know a suggestion that you made when he was on the pressure mat there was that he should toe out his lead foot to give him a little bit more rotation.
It's probably a little more square in this one.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of his typical setup. And Claude asked him just to kind of rotate that whole left leg a little bit, rotate that foot out. Right. And that just helps relieve a little tension in that left hip, and hopefully you can clear a little bit better.
Yeah, it also takes a little pressure off that knee.
Right.
What I love, if we've got a time, I know that there's Brooks drills in here.
Yep.
So even though we're looking at when he was winning major championships and when he was nursing an injury, the thing that I figured out we were looking at these drills and I go, you know what? That was Ryan and that was Claude taking him through a couple of drills to produce. Yeah, to produce. So here we go. Beautiful.
Yes,
So there was two drills that you did with them. One that didn't even involve a ball. So you had a top 5 player in the world, and you took the golf ball away from him and made him make the motion first.
Yeah.
I think that's
Claude does
interesting.
Claude does a lot. And it's really good to take away that golf ball because for some reason, for any golfer, that golf ball just creates a lot of different pressure or anxiety or tension, whatever it is. And it can change a signature or it can change a kinematic sequence, it can change video.
And you can see that this was all the same date, same outfit, same dates if you can't see that, but that the center of pressure lost the backup to the trail side. And Chip, if you could put him at impact right there, this is actually after a couple of the drills. So if you recall, 60% on the trail side at impact, again, maybe protecting the knee, so to speak, in his mind. And then now he's 70 forward and obviously a whole lot linear. And that pattern of trace is more similar to when he was winning majors and playing his best.
That's right.
That's just good coaching right there. So
I was definitely privileged to be part of that day in July. Typically, the Floridian is closed, and we have a lot of guys like Brooks and DJ come in during the summer because I'm always teaching. I'm never turned off, right? So we're always going, and it's great to be a part of that day and see the changes that body track can identify for sure that you really couldn't identify with maybe no other technology, right? So it's pretty neat.
yeah, I love the fact that you're measuring something that can't be seen and that the fact that a player that you guys know so well, that Claude knows so well, almost looks identical on video, but in terms of his interaction with the ground, it's totally different. It looks like a totally different player right now. And that's where your answer's like.